In this video, Jordan Peterson explains how we process new phenomena in our everyday lives.
So this boy, he's in his house, he's in his window, and he's become aware of something that's at least perplexing. Now, you might say, well, given the size of the dragon, that it's also terrifying, but we'll start with perplexing. So, because what's perplexing can turn into what's terrifying if you ignore it. So, and that's partly what this book is trying to present. Yeah, okay, so what happens is, well, the kid wakes up, there's something on his bed. He's not sure whether he should be afraid or interested, so he's sort of both. It's like a startle response in some sense, but at least it's a bit of focused attention. He's discovered something. Billy Bixby was rather surprised when he woke up one morning and found a dragon in his room. It was a small dragon about the size of a kitten. The dragon wagged its tail happily when Billy patted its head. Okay, so, well, what can we observe about that? Well, first of all, something unexpected has happened, right? And for a little kid, that's going to capture their imagination. It's like, well, is that scary? Or what's Billy going to do? And it's a narrative hook. Something unexpected has happened. All right, and it's paradoxical too, because it's a dragon, and Billy is surprised, but it's a small dragon. It's only the size of a kitten, and kids know about kittens. They're soft and cuddly, and they've got claws, but they're basically harmless and interesting. And not only that, when Billy interacts with the dragon at this size, it actually wags its tail and is happy. So there's a paradoxical situation set up for the boy right at the beginning of the narrative, which is something unexpected happens, and it has ambivalent significance. So, and he's interested in it, and he's alert to its possibilities, but that's about as far as it goes. So, Billy does what the logical child would do. It's called referencing, by the way. So, for example, if there's a child in a room and a mouse runs by, the child will orient towards it and follow it with its eyes and its head. And then, if the parent is around, then the child will reference the mother or the father and read off the mother's face what the significance of that event was, because it's unclassified significance. Intrinsically interesting because it's unexpected and fast, enough to alert you, to produce an orienting response so that you attend to it, and then it demands classification. So it starts off interesting and even potentially upsetting. That's how it manifests itself to begin with. And then the referencing, which is the look at the mother's face, allows the child to utilize the wisdom of the parent in order to rapidly classify the significance of the event. So then you think, well, the mother says, oh, well, it's just a mouse, we'll take care of it later. That's one reaction. Another reaction is, she jumps up on the table and has a screaming fit and then calls the hospital because she has a panic attack. It's like the meaning of the mouse under those two circumstances is very much different. She could also say, well, there aren't any mice here, which is also, a rather pathological response, but perhaps not as bad as the full-fledged panic attack. So, that's children. The part of the point of that is that when a child encounters something unexpected, so that's outside of their domain of competence, it does attract their interest. They'll orient towards it and explore it, but then they'll use whatever cultural information is at hand to classify the phenomena so they know what to do in its presence from then on. So that's an interesting thing to think about, because there's a couple of things that you can think about a mouse. One is, what is a mouse? And that's like a scientific question. And the other is, if there's a mouse, what should you do? And that's not a scientific question. That's a moral question, because it has to do with behavior. And it turns out that when you're attempting to classify a phenomena, the way that you're set up, given that you're a living creature and that you're very much action predicated, is that when you're trying to classify a phenomena, its implication for behavior is more important than its objective nature. And so almost all the knowledge that you have that grounds you in the world is actually information about how to behave in the presence of things. It's not information about what they are from an objective perspective. And your brain is set up that way. And you're very, very much action-oriented. Well, obviously, because you inhabit a body that moves, and your primary problem in life is what to do with your body as you move through space and time. And that's a particular category of knowledge. I would say that's the category that's essentially moral. And the ideas that underlie the essential categories of action, moral action, are religious ideas, or at least that's a claim. So that puts them in a completely different category than scientific ideas, and it also places them somewhere where there's no necessary conflict between the objective and the behavioral. You have to know how to behave, and science does not tell you that. In fact, it can't. The scientific method is actually designed so that the motivational significance of objects or entities is stripped off them before the investigation begins. You have to treat the phenomena as if it's objective and neutral in significance. And that's fine, but that doesn't mean that things are objective and neutral in significance. It just means that for the sake of a certain set of processes, which are basically associated with the scientific method, you have to undertake that operation before you start the game. And I think it's a very pathological turn in human history that we've confused the necessity of stripping off the significance from something before you can study it scientifically with the idea that things have no significance intrinsically. Because that's a completely debatable point, and it's certainly not how your brain is set up. You know, and you might think, well, your brain evolved. Well, that's the hypothesis anyways. And you might say, well, what did it evolve in relationship to? And then you might say, well, it evolved in relationship to reality. Because that's actually how you define reality, especially if you're a Darwinian. And the way your brain reacts to things is that it assesses their motivational significance first. So then you might say, well, how can you justify the claim that the motivational significance isn't real? And the answer, as far as I'm concerned, is you can't. The motivational significance of something might be the most real element of it. Anyways, and you certainly act like that, even if you don't believe it technically or rationally. As you move yourself through the world, you're constantly evaluating things for their motivational significance. And you do that without thinking. It's just how you are. So